Recently I was told that I should make a video about how I went from atheism to following the Quran. And I've avoided making this video because it's personal. It talks about my personal experiences, where all the other videos I try to make were about actually what I've learned, education. But I've recently been experiencing people saying the same arguments that I used to say as an atheist. So I think now is a good time to make this video to try to explain where I was coming from and where I'm coming from now. So for most of my life, until 9 or 10 years ago, I was an atheist. I wasn't just an atheist, I was a rabid atheist. I was the type of atheist that would go seek out people of any religion and tell them that they were stupid, debate them. And I was pretty good at it. I had some basic knowledge of religion. I went to a Jesuit university, so I had some basic knowledge of Christianity. I grew up around some Muslims, so I had some basic knowledge about Islam. And that basic knowledge, and it was very basic in retrospect, that was very basic knowledge, but that was enough to actually have debates with people against religion, people who claim to be religious. So I did that a lot, and the reason why it was enough, I would only later come to learn that most people don't even have the basic knowledge of what is written in the scripture, and I was one of them. So I made all these conclusions about religion, and I had held these beliefs pretty firmly. I wanted to change the world and remove religion, remove this evil specter of religion always hanging with a sword over the world, and the world is gonna get destroyed because of religion. Now, don't get me wrong, I still hold the view that a lot of religions, all of them actually, have parts of them that are not scriptural, and that there is always that potential, because of this lack of knowledge about scripture or preference of the teachings of people before us over scripture, that makes religion a dangerous thing. Whether we want to admit it or not, there have been many wars and millions of dead people these things were committed by people who claim to believe in a religion. Now, after you read the scripture, you understand that these are hypocrites and they're fake and they don't really believe because they don't act like the scripture says that they should believe. But these people did claim a religion. As a matter of fact, because of this fact is why I made the scripture one of my pastimes. It is what I dedicate my life to now, in order to try to teach people what the scripture says, so we can take some power away from these people who sit in high places, who use religion to manipulate our minds and get us to act in a way that God forbade in the first place. But that's a whole different topic. In any case, that was one thing that made me an atheist, a pure hate for religion. The other thing that made me an atheist is my own arrogance. I thought I was so enlightened. I was a medical student. I finished college. I thought I was smart, and I thought that science had it all figured out. Except my scientific knowledge was just as rudimentary as my knowledge of religion, just like everybody else's. Most people who believe in science, they don't understand what science really is. And most people who argue from the standpoint of science are not scientists. They don't understand the in-depth study that is necessary. For example, the theory of evolution. I don't know if it's true or not. It's a theory. It sounded a lot better to me until I actually did research, dug into the question, and realized how many questions are unanswered, especially going back to the origin in biochemistry. And there are many lesser scientists who are certain who just take one tiny little aspect of evidence and then extrapolate it to infinity and then present it, amplify it as if it was a fact. And that happens in science frequently. And then the media picks up on it, and you see how media can amplify things. So even for example, evolution, what me as a medical student thought was a fact, now as a doctor, as I feel more of a scientist now, but now I understand this has not been proven. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant to my argument here. What I'm trying to explain is that questioning stopped in regards to this, our origin. It stopped prematurely. Evolution is not proven. It may be true, I don't know, but it's not proven. To me, it's really irrelevant, because whether God created us from cells or fully formed, it doesn't matter to me. It's not an argument about evolution, it's an argument about science and questioning things, because it is this question: why do you believe the things that you believe, that broke me out of this cycle? So I was certain that science had it all answered, and I was certain that religion was evil. And therefore I was a rabid atheist who wanted to destroy religion, who denounced God at every moment publicly. And then one day I'm just sitting there, I'm just chilling, I'm really not doing anything, and this question goes poof. And you know, I didn't know what to do. I didn't hear it with my ears, I heard it with my mind. I didn't really know what to do. So I don't know why, I just started researching all these beliefs that I held. And first I read the Bible. And I used to, being at a Jesuit university, I actually took some Christianity classes because I had to. And I remember having debates with the theology professor about Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, and like, who's he praying to? And about him, about a line in John that said, where he says, do not hold on to me, for I have not ascended yet. I have not ascended to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. He says he has a God. So the theologies that were created over time were clearly not right and not scriptural. But I didn't connect the dots yet at the same time. Even in Islam, Muslims will say that Prophet Muhammad is the greatest of creation. And to me, that just seemed like a very person-oriented religion, which I always objected to. It always seemed like one side picks one guy and the other side picks the other guy, and then they just fight each other and then commit crimes, whatever. And only later, after I read the Quran, that I realized that exalting Muhammad like that, Prophet Muhammad like that, is wrong. Number one, God in the Quran forbids us to make distinction among the messengers, and number two, Prophet Muhammad is instructed, so I know he said this, things like, I don't know what's going to happen to me or to you. I just follow what I got, what's been revealed, and I have no power to help myself or you. I'm just a messenger. And then they made him into this something much greater. I mean, on one lecture, religious lecture, I heard in a mosque, and this is after the fact, but anyways, this is the type of stuff that's taught. That he told a tree to move so you can go to the bathroom without being exposed. This is the same guy that was instructed to tell people, I can't even benefit myself, man. I'm just telling you what God said. And then they came up with all of this. So Islam didn't go as far as making him into God, but they came pretty close, and it's just nonsense. Christianity made their prophet a god. It's also nonsense. The Bible speaks against it. The Gospels, at least what he said. The Bible itself is a collection of writings that were collected by people, and most of it is writings of priests who never met Jesus. This is kind of correlates to the Hadith in Islam. But anyways, I'm going off topic. So that's why I disbelieved in all of this. And then this question came, and I read and I did all the research. I did my science. I did my religion. And I realized that all my arguments were baseless. I could argue against people who follow like religion, but not people who follow scripture. And I realized that this is right. Everything I read in the Quran was right. When you think about society, when you think about life, when you think about who we are, the Quran knew me, knew who I was. In general terms, the Quran identifies people. In general terms, the Quran identifies people. What we think, what we fear, what we desire, what we want, it knows it all, because it mentions everything that all of us want, that all of us fear, that all of us, it knows us. It really knows us. It makes us predictable. So when I read the Quran, I just knew I was wrong. There was nothing I could do. I was wrong. But I was wrong because I thought I had knowledge, and I didn't. I had superficial knowledge. And this is the reason why I'm making this video. Superficial knowledge is a lot more dangerous than complete ignorance. Superficial knowledge, you are less likely to change than when you admit to yourself that, hey, I need to do more research. And superficial knowledge is obtained through hearsay, through observing people, through, you can't know, just because a person says they're following something, or that you can't assume that they're right. You can't even assume that they did their research. Most people who claim to believe in science don't understand how it works. Most people who claim to be Christian are not. Most people who claim to be Muslim are not. They do not have the knowledge of the scripture required to be that. Most of their knowledge comes from people who may be just as ignorant. Religious leaders, pseudoscientists who don't understand what they're talking about. In any case, when I read the Quran, when I read the Bible, I did my scientific research, I realized that the world was pulled over my eyes. I decided to do this, to spread knowledge. Initially, I was pretty naive, and I thought that I could just tell the people what's written in the scripture, and everybody be like me. Oh wow, all makes sense. But I realized that wasn't the case. Initially after I started obeying God, I remembered a verse from the Bible where Jesus says, people don't light a candle and put it on under the bed. They put it on a nightstand where people can see. So I started to try to share my knowledge. Unfortunately, that didn't work out too well because people thought I went crazy. But then, what kept me from really collapsing and in despair during that time was also a verse from the Quran. When I saw the verses from the Quran, when I saw that that people even called prophets crazy, and the Bible too. They called Jesus the devil. They called Prophet Muhammad insane. And when I tried sharing the knowledge that I got from the scripture, people called me crazy too. They literally went up to my mom in a store, and if anybody knows who that was, if you are that person, I would love to talk to you. I'm not even mad, but why would you go up to my mom in a store and ask her if I'm crazy without ever talking to me? Anyways, that is something that bugs me 10 years later, because my mom came up to me, almost started crying, and asked me if I was crazy. When your mom asks you if you're crazy, you really kind of start to question yourself. But thank God, I read the scripture. I saw what was coming. Everything is entirely predictable. So I kind of stuck to it, and made it my mission to spread this knowledge and fight against these misconceptions as much as I could. To kind of take away the power that depends on ignorance, because people who control religion, they only control it because people haven't read the books. Most of the people I'm not going to say most, I don't know, but some of the people who are atheists and who have objections to religion, if they only would read the Quran, if they would only study it, would see that it supports everything they say. But they don't hold any power in religion because they have allowed the people who don't have this knowledge to rule. And if you yourself don't want to put in the effort, then somebody else is going to grab a hold of that value and run with it. So because of this superficial knowledge, people abandon religion because they look at it and they see it's wrong. So I really try to explain what religion is, and this is what I do. This is what I do in my pastime. I'm not a priest. I'm not trained. I don't do any any of that. I just do what I do, and try to explain what the scripture says, because it's pretty easy. It's actually not that hard. So that's it. That I was an atheist because I had superficial knowledge. Once I studied everything in depth, I submitted to God. And God willing, I hope God finds me worthy. That God finds my efforts worthy, because I have a long life before this where I lived normally, and normal was pretty sick, and it still is sick. Our societies are sick because normal is sick. We are not kind, humble, trustworthy people for the most part, and because of this, God will destroy us. God will destroy our societies, and when we are destroyed, we are going to bow down and worship Him again, because we will understand the humility that comes with experiences of hardship. So when that happens, I don't know. Prophets didn't even know. Jesus even didn't know. But God does always do that. The lessons from the Quran are there to warn us that, hey, these cities got destroyed, you will be destroyed. God makes no exceptions. So that's it. I don't even know if that really fully described how I went from atheist to a person who submits to God, but just a lot of it went into it. So that's all.